What? Come on, Jack Lemmon, guys. Yeah. You guys are Mustang people. God, we got to outdo the Chevy people that were here last week. Yeah, now you're getting angry. That's what I want. Okay. Are we streaming? We are streaming. Russia is here. Privyet, Russia. Welcome to the Petersen Automotive Museum and inside the MotoMan studio. And we are very excited because we are presenting the Mustang Madness Weekend, which is celebrating 50 years of the American icon that is known as the Ford Mustang. Now, you guys have joined us here at Museum Row in Los Angeles at the Petersen Automotive Museum when we've met key people shaping the car world. And the car world is kind of like one big family. But today we're going to go to our nuclear family. Today, we're actually focusing on Southern California and legacy families in the car world. So for those of you that know the Ford world, they probably know Galpin Ford. You probably know Galpin Autosports, and you also probably more so know Pimp My Ride. Today's guest, he comes from a legacy family of Fords. Started back in 1946. And what's the old saying in the NASCAR world? Race on Sunday, sell on Monday. Now for Ford Motor Company, that means literally, okay, we sell on Monday. But for Galpin Ford, that literally means there is a salesman that will sell you a car on Monday. But it didn't just stop with NASCAR, drag racing. And this was all kind of taken from a small shop to the largest Ford dealer in the country by Beau Boeckmann. And Beau had kind of big ways in which to promote selling Fords. Some he literally went above, and in other cases, he went beyond. And in still other cases, he decided, you know what, for drag racing, one motor is not enough, and two-wheel drive is not enough. This is the Mach 4. It is a four-wheel drive, four-motor Mustang. But today's guest, he picked up the baton from Beau, and he took customization not only to another level, he took it to national TV. So I want you guys to help me join in welcoming the man himself, Pimp My Ride fame, Galpin Autosports president and vice president of Galpin Ford, Beau Boeckmann. Sir, welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
So when I say families, what's so fantastic about Bert and Galpin, you guys, yeah, we're going to talk Fords, and we've got the 2015 Ford here, the Mustang, but really you guys are part of the Southern California car family.
Well, I feel very fortunate to be a part of that. You know, growing up at Galpin was a very unique experience because our showroom was always filled with very unique automobiles that Dad was doing back in the day and some pretty outlandish and crazy things. But it was all about the passion for the
crazy things.
No, yeah. But most importantly, it was a passion about serving our customers and having some unique things. So when you came to Galpin, you're going to see cars there that you're not going to see anywhere else. And also just a passion for the automobile and a love for what you can do.
Yeah. Now, speaking of love, when we first chatted, you said you were the luckiest guy in the world.
Oh, I feel that way.
You did. So I dug around a little bit, and I found some pictures of the luckiest guy in the world before he was a guy.
Yeah?
Yeah. What's this?
Well, it's with Mom and Dad. Where is that? I don't know, Mom? Oh, cool. Yeah.
How old are you there?
Probably about 8 or 9, something like that. 10. Hard
Okay.
to tell exactly.
So what's it like growing up as part of the Galpin family?
Oh, I don't know. I think when you're a kid, you kind of grow up, whatever surroundings you are, thinking it's normal.
Yeah.
You know, so when I walk in the...
Cars as far as the eye can see, that's normal.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were, you know, we play hide and go seek in the conversion vans and and RVs, and you know, I'd walk on the showroom floor, and there'd be, you know, the miniature White House sometimes, and other times my first jobs were like serving sarsaparillas because we had a big Western theme. So we had a lot of fun at the dealership growing up. It was, you know, The car business in the 1970s.
Car
It was
business
kind of a
in the
unique
70s,
time.
Okay. Interesting Christmas trees you got here.
We always went big on the Christmas
Yeah,
trees.
literally big on them. Well, that's going to come up later. What's this? This is you and your dad.
Fishing in Alaska. The Ford dealers would get together and they had this contest, and you'd win a trip to go fishing up in Alaska. And we won, so that was probably the first trip Dad and I went on.
Awesome. About how old are you here?
13, I believe.
Okay. So when you were about 14, you seemed to get involved into international sports.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So this is when I attempted to run the Olympic torch for a period of time.
The Olympic torch? Here in LA when they did this.
Yeah,
did
it was
thing
really
here.
cool. Actually, my brothers and I got to run and do that. It was
So
really neat.
where did you actually run it in LA?
On PCH.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What, through like Malibu or something?
Yeah, it was actually like right by Pepperdine. And I was so nervous. I've never admitted this before. I was so nervous I actually crapped my pants. It was the most horrible run of my life. Thank you for bringing up these painful memories, George.
Yeah, you realize this is a family show
Yeah,
here.
well.
Yeah. You don't want to know what we were talking about before. Yeah, that's for damn certain. So speaking of family shows, what do we got here?
This is my mother received Mother of the Year, which I think she gets every year from
Mother
me.
of the Year?
Yes, from California.
We have Jane
Mom.
Galpin right here. So that's funny. If you think about it, what is it? It's May now, so here in the U.S., it's Mother's Day coming up.
Yep.
So how many Mother of the Year cards do like their kids give mothers? Your mother literally got the award.
She did, yeah.
That's, wow.
I think that was around 1882.
Dang, awesome.
Yeah, Mom.
And so what did you guys do that was, what did you think was part of this, went into this Mother of the Year thing?
You know, I don't know back then what all the qualifications were. Mom was always extremely civically active,
Yeah.
and really, you know, example that both my parents have given is really that we're there to help others and to serve our community. Our community is very good to us and has always been very supportive to us and for us. So it's our job to give back and to do right by the community. And Mom and Dad have always led by example and always doing the right thing and out there to help others, and that really would be the basis of it.
Okay. Good thing
And
you
I
bring
think
up.
it's not just Mother of the Year for me, but it was, and for our brothers and sisters, but more Mother of the Year saying this is a good example of what a mother should do. It's not just about her own kids, but about helping other kids as well.
What kind of organizations was your mother involved in?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, keep track of
I know
that
this
one.
sounds.
Yeah.
We've been involved with so many organizations over the years that it's really hard to count,
Yeah.
and it's changed, you know, over the years as different needs come up and different things. But it was my folks always focused on the organizations that might have been overlooked. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of great charities out there and they do great work, but they also have great marketing and they get a lot of support behind them. And I think part of the families was to do things a little bit quieter, a little bit more behind the scenes, and to look for those charities that are really doing wonderful work, but might not have like the marketing dollars or the big names behind them to kind of promote themselves in a huge way. So it's kind of looking for the real needs of the community.
So that brings up a very good question. Like, you know, this is how most of the audience here, car guys, I'm assuming car guys. Raise your hand if you're
I
a
hope
car
so.
guy. You should all be raising your hand. Let's be very clear about this. Like, most car guys, they'll go out like on a rally with their father, or they'll wrench on. We learned from Vaughn yesterday that he was wrenching on an old Oldsmobile with 30-inch or what is it, 100-spoke Daytons.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you and your dad and your mom do? Was it just like surrounding Galpin things, or did you guys go and do?
So much more boring than that. I was going to political functions and charity dinners and things I had no idea why I was there. It wasn't like fun car rallies and stuff, no. Unfortunately.
So there was more.
Oh, no, it was great though.
It was more than Galpin.
Absolutely,
Back
always,
home.
yeah.
Okay. And how many siblings do you have?
I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
Okay.
Yeah,
Speaking of family and giving, someone gave you something when you got your license.
oh yeah, that was my grandmother's 1965 220 SE Mercedes Benz.
I have to say, that's the funniest looking Ford I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, well, she used to drive that out from Arkansas every year. to visit us, and it was green on green on green. My favorite color was green. I always loved this car.
Yeah.
So when she passed on, that's what she willed me, and that was my first car. It was the first car that I got to work on. We restored it and customized it.
Didn't you? So there's a very unique, like this looks like perhaps you're over in like East Berlin going and picking somebody up, taking them to a staff party meeting. It's an understated car, but you decided to change something about it.
Yeah, we put a leopard skin interior in it. It came out pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Well, it was really funny. I had this idea for kind of customizing this car when I was 15 and what I really wanted to do. And I went down to the to our shop, which are actually our recon shop. We didn't have a restoration shop back then. And they're like, we just couldn't find the materials that you're looking for. And, they were showing me like red on white. I'm like, that's not what I'm into. I'm like, you really couldn't find any leopard skin interior? Like that's something normal for people to find. And he goes, oh, leopard skin. We thought you wanted zebra. And he walked over the corner of the shop and pulled out a roll, I'm not kidding you, of leopard skin interior that had been sitting there since the 50s and pulls it out and go, is this what you're looking for? And I went, oh, that's exactly it. And that's how we ended up doing that kind of cool car.
And the car sits like this today at Galpin Autosports.
It does. That's for me personally, the last thing on earth I would ever sell. It just has a lot of personal meaning to me, especially coming from my grandmother.
So I am a Pac-12 guy. Where did you go to school?
At USC, University of Southern California.
So when you went off to school, what was the thought in your mind? Was it, I want to go into the family business, or I want to go be a firefighter, I want to go be an actor? What was the thought?
I don't know. I know it might sound strange. I never really thought I was going to do anything but be in the car business. It never occurred to me. My dad went to USC, and it was important to his father, who was actually orphaned quite young, that his son would go to USC because that was the most prominent school at the time. So he worked extremely hard so my dad could attend USC along with his brother, Carl. And I don't know, it always seemed natural to me. Every time I watched the USC-UCLA football game, we seemed to win. Yeah. And I'm like, I like these guys. Okay. And I don't know, it grew up like thinking that's where I want to go. I only applied to one college, and I only applied for one job in my life.
So much so that you brought the car business to USC?
We did. In fact, we got a chance to sponsor the homecoming games at Tommy Trojan there, and this was a customized truck called the Tailgate Party truck that we built for it. So the ultimate kind of tailgating experience truck.
And this went on beyond USC, didn't it?
We did quite a bit with those.
Yeah.
They got quite popular and built quite a number of them.
How many did you build?
Gosh, 14 or 15 total, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a pet project turns into actually a little bit of a business.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so it's kind of like an MBA at USC, but on four wheels.
Right, exactly.
Probably cheaper than an MBA at USC.
That's for sure.
Then you decided to go work at the store, but in reality, you started way before you went to college. You were working at Galpin Ford.
Well, for summer jobs and things like that, working, rent a car, or finding whatever odd jobs there were to do. But ever since I was a little kid, we'd, during the big sales, we'd pass out the drinks and the sodas and popcorns and things like that. So they always found a way to get free labor out of us.
Now that's smart marketing. I like this guy, Bert. If I were to say the words Ford Festiva to you, what does that mean?
Oh, I sold our last Ford Festiva. So
was it a fancy one?
No, base model stick shift.
Yeah, the ad car.
The ad car, $89.95.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was to the sweetest little old lady, and she, seriously, one of the nicest customers I ever had in my life. Her husband was an actor on MASH who had passed away. So she walks in and she had the ad. And, I knew it was a stick shift. I wasn't sure if she would, be comfortable driving it. We took it out, obviously. She was extremely comfortable driving the car. She loved it, to my kind of surprise. And then I walked outside and saw her trade-in. And I don't remember what car it was, but it was being held together with bungee cords. And I barely got it started, and it's like, jerking and jamming across the street, and smoke's just puttering everywhere. And I go to get it appraised on the used car lot, and the manager stopped. Bo, stop. You've got a $100 car there. I mean, it's like, it's just whatever it costs us to tow it away and destroy it. So it's like, okay, offer him, you can give her $100 for it. And she thought that was like awesome to get $100 for her car. And she just loved that. I think it was a 1989 Festiva.
Oof.
And she wrote me the nicest letter about how much she loved that car. So you never know really what really is going to be important to people, what really fits their needs.
Okay.
I learned a good lesson that day.
Awesome. And the tree comes back into play here.
Oh, always the big tree. Yeah.
Now, do people, like, is this like a thing? Every year you guys do this big tree?
Oh, every year. You know, my Aunt Gloria, and it used to be my Uncle W passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, my mom's brother. But we'd have a big tree ceremony and basically, forget what night we'd go, but usually I think the night after Thanksgiving, and spend all night decorating the showrooms and the trees. And we still do that to this day.
So in New York, it's Rockefeller Center. In L.A., it's Galpin.
And I forget how tall. Our tree actually is taller than the showroom, so it's like an 18-foot tree, I want to say. Something like that. It's huge, right? 18 foot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Close to 20 in the skylight.
Tough hairdo you got there and the whole thing?
Oh, that's just one of the bad haircuts in my day.
Now, let's step back a little bit. So before you came into the picture, actually before your father came into the picture, Galpin Ford started.
Yes, it did.
When did Galpin Ford start?
1946.
Wow.
And Frank Galpin had actually worked for Ford Motor Company in the aircraft division, I believe, and got his own dealership in San Fernando.
Here in LA, you worked there?
Yes, at the Model A plant.
And then how did your father get involved with Galpin Ford?
Well, my dad was going to USC in his senior year and had actually signed up to serve in the military and was drafted. And I'll probably get the story wrong a little bit, but basically he walked in the draft office to say, "You can't draft me, I'm already enlisted." To which they only heard, "You can't draft me," and said, "Bam, you're drafted." So he dropped out of school so he could earn some money for his young family as he was going off. And dropped out of school, and a friend said, "Hey, why don't we try selling cars?" I think his friend lasted 2 weeks, and he's been doing it for 60 years now. And of course, they found out that he was not supposed to be being drafted. So ironically, he was set to go into service and did not go because he was drafted. So that's the only time I ever heard that story before.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right, Dad?
That's correct.
Pretty much. He's agreeing.
All right. Yeah, so we can, anything he says, we can check with
Yeah, exactly. I got fact check over here.
Yeah, although I noticed you left your wife at home.
Well, we got a little sick kids at home, so.
Yeah, we'll have to get to the embarrassing stories.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Model A's before. Model A's have kind of a special place in your father's heart.
Yeah, his first car was a Model A, a 1930 Model A that his uncle who lived next door gave him when he was 16.
Okay. Then from Model A's, your father went into management. Where did he go into management?
Oh, he got the lucky job of being our first Edsel manager. It wasn't called Galpin Edsel; it was called Modern Edsel Sales, and it was next door to Galpin Ford.
Okay. And the showroom kind of moved around.
Yeah. Well, this is actually the first picture of Galpin Ford in 1946, when it was called Brown and Galpin. Actually, Brown was a B-movie actor. Who I think probably put up some of the money for Galpin. This picture I love. I think it's absolutely fascinating because if you look into the showroom in 1946, you'll see how prominent the accessories were inside the showroom already. And you'll also notice that there's a 1914 Model T that was used quite a bit to kind of take people around and show kind of the history of Ford Motor Company, and a very rare 1946 Woody convertible, or Woody Ford convertible Woody. And today they go for a fortune. So I just look at that and I go, wow, our roots really are about the history of Ford, about customizing, and about awesome cars. So we are still living the history that was really started in 1946.
And then where did it go from there? You guys were always in the valley, right?
Well, San Fernando is where we started out. That was that little three-car showroom.
Yeah.
And then we moved to our current location in 1966.
Now, you and I are kind of the same age.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So you remember when Lexus came out. Lexus
I
and
do.
Infiniti came, and the whole idea was we're going to reinvent retailing.
Right.
We're going to make it a nice place to go, and you're going to have a place to sit and relax while your car is being serviced, give you a loaner car, actually treats you like a human being.
Right.
What happened when you guys started building this?
Well, actually, this is pretty brilliant in my mind because Galpin Square was meant to be the first automobile department store. And by doing that, we had very large showrooms, unlike a lot of showrooms of the day. So we can fit 14 to 16 cars in the showroom. Had a full-service restaurant in there, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So a customer wanted to kind of think about it for a while. They could sit in a restaurant and think about it. It was actually even designed with a playground and a barber shop, but didn't quite have the space once we figured out, I wasn't there, I wasn't born yet, but once Dad and Mom figured out, it really wasn't quite the parking for it. But the idea was to really give the services that you would want kind of in a department store at a car dealership.
Yeah. So maybe you should have your lawyer call Lexus? What do you think?
Maybe.
So here we are building it, and is this when you guys first started?
I wasn't born yet, so Dad, I'm not sure about that. It looks like right when we were opening the dealership.
This office is still there.
That's Dad's office, still today, yeah.
And what's going on here, talking about Mother of the Year?
Well, actually, this is a groundbreaking for a school that I actually went to since I was 3 years old, called Valley Presbyterian School in North Hills, and they were looking to build and expand into elementary school along with preschool, kindergarten, and Mom and Dad helped put the funding together to raise the money to build the school. And I went there for my from 3 to 12, and my kids have all gone to this school now, so they're all going through it, and it's just the most wonderful, loving Christian school you can imagine. So not just
legacy generations of Ford, legacy generation of school.
That's true.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, big round of applause for Jane and Bert there. So to fund a school, obviously, you have to be very good at selling cars, and you got to be somewhat unique at getting people in the door, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Who's this?
This is Shaggy the dog. Shaggy was actually a Ford mascot, but Galpin really picked up on it, and we had our own Shaggy dog that would go around, and Shaggy Dog Banks, and he was part of our advertising and all kinds of fun stuff.
Okay. We have some people from Ford in the audience here, so I need some help on this one. I don't see a recognizable Ford in this picture, and that is your showroom.
Well, this looks like the performance car days. We had buggies and off-road vehicles and all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit too much time in the barbershop here before you said this.
Before my time,
Let's blame it on Dad.
Yeah.
Where did this idea come up with?
I have no idea where this idea came from, again, because I wasn't around at the time, but Galpin had its own skydiving team.
Okay, stop. A car dealership had a skydiving team.
Well, yeah, you got to get the picture. I don't know. I don't know where that came from, Mom and Dad.
Can I have a job there? Because I'd like to go on the skydiving.
Well, it was a really fun time, and I think that to me was when I got into advertising and marketing, the most exciting thing for me was kind of discovering and appreciating our history and what we'd done, because it was just about having fun and doing some neat things. My guess is a customer came to Dad and said, "Hey, I'm doing the skydiving team. We're out to break this world record. Would you support us?" And Dad said, "Sure, that sounds like fun." Most likely, and we did, and they actually broke I don't forget what it was, but they did break a skydiving record in the early 1970s with the Galpin Ford skydiving team.
Galpin Ford skydiving. There you go. I didn't even know this. Now, skydiving was not the only way you guys...
By the way, we repeated that stunt last year at our car show. And that was Jeff Scobin's idea, and he came up with, hey, why don't we redo our little bit of history? So we had skydivers with Galpin's flags coming down.
Speaking of Jeff Scobin, we were talking, the theme here we're going to talk about today, guys, is we're going to talk legacies, we're going to talk families. It's not just the Fords, not just the Boeckmanns, but Jeff.
Absolutely.
Tell me what his father does for a living.
Well, his dad is really kind of my dad's right-hand man and business advisor, confidant. He's our vice president, as well as he didn't start off as an attorney, but he went to law school, got his degree, and now is our in-house attorney as well. But he's really just one of the most wonderful men in the world, and just a great asset, and someone he started off in marketing at Galpin as well, and now Jeff, his son, runs marketing, and it's just so much fun to work with somebody that when I was a little kid I looked up to, and now his son, who's grown up with, we work side by side, very similar to where he and my dad work side by side. So yeah, we keep things very. And by the way, there's a lot of families at Galpin with similar stories, and I don't know. I feel like that's one of the most important parts of our legacy is that we're truly a family business that has a lot of families that we all work together.
Okay, and you guys have created some of your own children.
Oh yeah, so this is one of my favorite pictures of Dad with some of his creations back in probably this is about 1975, 76.
But it started before then.
Yeah, now this is actually the first Galpin Custom. It was called the Galpin Custom. It was built between 1952 and 1953.
And refresh our memory, when did your dad actually start at Galpin?
Dad started in 1953, so right when he arrived at the dealership, this vehicle was finished. And Frank Galpin, back in the day, it was about, hey, what are cars going to look like next year? Back then, for the new car showing, all the new cars would arrive. You'd put newspaper on the windows so they couldn't see what the new cars were. Everything was revealed all at once. It was very dramatic and very cool. So Frank Galpin said, well, why don't I just build today what the car of tomorrow is going to be? And this car was actually built in the back of Galpin with all the metal bodywork and that was done back then. I didn't get the name of the guy. I just said some big German guy was the welder on it. And had Lincoln and Mercury parts. And it was a very kind of unique design for the day. French headlights, taillights. And it went on to be on the cover of Motor Trend in 1953.
Awesome.
So our first custom, which, by the way, as far as I can determine, it's the first time that a new car was customized at a car dealership in this manner.
And what was the logic of doing customs for you guys?
Well,
even today?
Back then, it was, I don't know what exactly Frank Galpin's goal was other than kind of be progressive and show what was coming. And he did similar things. It was in the Petersen Auto Show in Pasadena in 1953, the Autorama back, actually 52, excuse me,
yeah.
November at the Autorama there. And he was there with Sam and George Barris and some of the biggest customs of the day. And I think it was similar today to kind of promote the dealership and show, hey, what can be done.
Speaking of things that can be done, we actually, it's kind of funny, you back me up on this whole thing. This is a small family here in Southern California of the car world. We have downstairs a 1939 car that has a sunshine roof, which is the old term for a sunroof. I actually like sunshine roof better.
Yeah.
And I'm a guy, I love sunroofs. Always loved, I grew up in New York, always loved sunroofs. I have never seen a first-gen Mustang with a sunroof or a rumble seat.
Well, yeah, and actually Heinz Proctor, who you may know started ASC, American Sunroof Company, actually had the gas station up the street from Galpin Ford, and he got the rights for the European sunroof and had it installed at Galpin, and it was the first sunroof installed in America. It was on a Galpin Ford car, and after that he started doing some other kind of crazy things like building rumble seats. So we were building rumble seats with sunroofs, Mustangs with sunroofs and rumble seats.
Makes perfect sense. It's the first thing I would think.
It looked cool.
It did look cool. Does this car still exist?
Yes. I saw one about 15, 20 years ago, but I haven't seen one since.
Wow. How many of those cars did you sell?
I think about a dozen or so. I'm not really sure.
On roof or both?
The rumble seats.
We sold one every year.
So
one
two.
every year. Okay, two. Okay. And then sunroofs weren't enough.
Well, we did some on some Torinos too. I noticed back in the day. So the
rumble seat.
The rumble seats. So we did a Mustang and a Torino. Which is kind of cool.
Sunroofs and rumble seats weren't enough. You decided to make your own rumble.
Well, this is Gary Weckeser's Mach 4, the 4-engine Mustang, and this was built in 1969. It's just in the other hall right now, and it's absolutely amazing.
You got to check it out.
Four Cleveland engines that run simultaneously, and This car got up to 170 miles an hour.
How did you connect 4 V8s in that little car?
Well, that one you got to hand to Gary Weckesser, and it's actually all done through a single clutch as well, so it's pretty brilliant. And this was his kind of crowning achievement, and he came to Dad to say, hey, would you sponsor it and kind of help? And we did servicing on the car and anything, but the engineering was actually Gary. And then we kind of sponsored it and serviced it, took care of it, and all that kind of good stuff.
Did the all-wheel drive actually help in drag racing?
That I'm not an expert on. I don't know, but someday it'd be fun to take that out.
I'll tell you
again.
what, we'll wheel it out this afternoon. We'll go up and down Wilshire Boulevard.
All right, I'm down.
Cops can't catch us with 4 engines.
That'd
Even
be
the
great.
radio won't catch us. Then you decided to make an aquarium.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny when we were doing Pimp My Ride, and they'd say things like, oh, yeah, well, we were the first to put an aquarium in a car. I'm like, guys, this is, when I was a kid, we did an aquarium show, and here's a Pinto. That literally is
Perfect car for an aquarium, too. I mean, come on.
I can't really explain that too well, other than to say we were doing an aquarium show, so why not build a car into an aquarium?
Why not?
And it actually did work.
Speaking of Pintos.
Yeah, so this is another adventure.
An aquarium wasn't enough, just like a sunroof wasn't enough.
So interestingly, Galpin is the only company that ever had a franchise for a flying car. And not only were we had a franchise, but we were going to be the distributor of the Mizar, which was the flying Pinto.
Yes. I am a major James Bond fan.
Yes, cool, as am I.
Not an AMC fan.
Yes.
But if you look at that.
And this was, completely knocked me off my chair when I found this out, because I am also a huge James Bond fan.
Okay, hold on. Who's your favorite Bond? If you don't say
Sean Connery is the best Bond of all time. But I grew up in the 70s, so Roger Moore was James Bond to me at first, but then I figured out who Sean Connery was. I'm like, oh, he was actually the real James Bond.
I got to get me the White Lotus with the PWW.
That is pretty cool.
I got to have me one of those.
But what I found out was a little research that actually they had intended on using this car in the Bond film. And
the Flying Pinto.
Correct.
In Thailand.
Well,
to chase Scaramanga.
That was from what I understand, the actual story. And I'd actually learned that when Top Gear was doing research on doing 50 years of James Bond. And they called me and said, hey, what about this flying Pinto that inspired the Scaramanga car? And I'm like, it did? I had no idea. And they went on to say, yeah, they had actually intended on using it. They saw it in some kind of report. Unfortunately, the flying Pinto had a tragic ending, as the developer of the car, an airplane, excuse me, because it was a Cessna that was basically hooked up. The idea was that you could drive your car to the airport, hook up the wings, fly to your destination, take the wings off, and use your car wherever you wanted to come back, and it would snap right back into place. A pretty ingenious idea, but then there's the practicality of everything working. And he had developed a new wing for it. It was a windy day. His test pilot did not want to go up, recommended not going up, and unfortunately he was a little stubborn and went up, and the one wing did buckle. And it was a tragic ending where the two creators died. It was really terrible. So when that happened, they went to the AMC, and there's a lot of AMCs in that movie. And then this is actually, they never got a real flying car. This is a model airplane.
Yeah.
And
I know we're talking Mustangs and Fords today, but the Gremlin that went, could have been a better choice, really.
That was a pretty crazy. That was a real stunt. It was a real stunt. Yeah,
that was the car that really did it.
Yeah.
I guess when you have
one take only, by the way.
That was a one take thing?
I heard that. I don't know if it's true or not.
Find out. I went to Thailand to check that place out. There really is a Scaramanga island.
Really?
Yeah, it's off the coast of Krabi. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So it wasn't enough for you guys to inspire Lexus. It wasn't enough for you guys to inspire all-wheel drive and Quattro Audis. And now James Bond movies, he decided to start a craze in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Well, galvanizing, again, was about listening to customers and what they wanted to do. So, and what was important to them out of cars. So vans started getting really popular, especially surfer vans. And so Dad said, well, if the kids want them, why don't we try building them? The first one that we did, and again, this is before I was born, but they put in a linoleum floor and some other things, and the kid came along and said, well, if you put carpet in, I'll buy it. They said, duh. So they put carpet. And then a friend of my brother-in-law, well, this is when they started getting fun, because a friend of my brother-in-law said, well, I want to take my wife on a honeymoon across the country. Would you build a special van so that I can utilize it on the road? So they put in a couch that folded a bed and a porta potty and a dresser and all kinds of amenities, and that was really the conversion van. And we went from selling 25 vans a month to 125 vans a month for doing all these crazy conversion vans, and they really went nuts with fireplaces and all kinds of crazy things.
Monkeys.
And monkeys.
Yeah. So when you got to your driving age and dating, did your parents let you borrow these things and go out on dates?
I was a little tamer by the time
Yeah.
the 80s came around, you know.
Oh,
my favorite.
This one's an interesting one.
Yeah, this was Madame Frenchie's. The ultimate in 70s taste. Yeah. You got the fleur-de-lis velvet interior with the working fireplace and a chandelier with the risque painting over the chandelier and love seat in the back.
This wasn't made for the guy who wanted it for his wife.
I have no idea.
I
This
hope
is
not.
just awesome, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never seen a more awesomely tasteless van in my life. There's just something fantastic and so period correct about the 70s on this van.
Does this still exist, this car?
Man, if it did, I'd do everything I could to find it.
Yeah.
But I have not heard of it since. In fact, it has been not heard of or seen of in 40 years. So if anybody out there sees this van, please let us know.
Okay. Well, we're even telling the Russians we want this as well. We'll
It might be in
find out.
Russia. Who knows?
Now, there's other customs you guys have been doing over the years, not just vans, trucks.
Yeah.
This one's an interesting one. Not so much what it is, but where you did it and how long it took you to build this.
Well, we were talking to Ford, and SEMA was coming up, and they wanted to have some kind of attraction. And they said, is there something you can do that's kind of active, that would be on stage, that kind of get people involved in what's going on? Because, you know, it's one thing to have a static display of cars, and that's fine. But, you know, we want something that people are going to want to keep coming back to the Ford booth for. So I said, I don't know, what if we built a car from scratch in 3 days on the stage? And I thought it was like a stupid idea. And I went to our guys and I said, yeah, with the right planning, we could do that. So at SEMA, we built this car from scratch live in 3 days.
What year was this?
Well, it's a 69. It's a Dynacorn body. And we did this, 5 years ago at SEMA, I believe? 5 or 6 years ago. And it just came out like really cool.
Cool looking car.
And, you know, naturally it took a lot of planning to get there. So you kind of build it, take it apart, and then, but it was, we started the stage with just thousands of parts all laid there. And at the end of 3 days, we had that car built completely. Then I got really nervous because we actually started it live. And that's when I'm sweating because I'm like, if this thing doesn't start, I'm going to look like a real jerk. Started it up, and then I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to go for it, let's go all the way. Drove it out of SEMA. Von Gittin Jr., our buddy, grabbed the keys, took me for a spin of this thing. We just started drifting in the back parking lot at SEMA and just banged the hell out of this thing.
was built on a showroom floor, and then you went straight to drifting.
Straight to drifting from being built. And it, thank God, worked flawlessly. So that's a testament to our team that built it on the stage.
So big round of applause for both of you guys
Hey, for the
and
team.
Vaughn for doing that. Some trucks. And
Now
then
this is cool. That Tonka truck I just got yesterday. There's 3 different toys being made out of this truck. So Tonka came to us and said, we want you to build what's going to be the next Tonka truck. And if you're from our generation, I mean, Tonka trucks when we were kids, that's what you played with, were Tonka trucks. So, I mean, this is another literally dream come true for me.
Wasn't this truck at the Chicago Auto Show or one like it?
Very well, it toured for a period of time. It very well could be. I'm not 100% sure.
I am going to give you some feedback. So we have not discussed this in advance at all. I'm giving you some feedback.
Not any of this, actually.
Chicago Auto Show, not February, just there. I stayed the weekend. I have a very good friend that lives up there. We took his son. Will is I want to say 4 or 5 years old, something like that. We took him to the booth. Ford has this thing where you can build a Mustang for the kids. I tried to get them to let me build one. They were like, buddy, you're a bit old. No, not you. Then when we're done building the Mustang, he didn't want to see the real car. He couldn't care less about the Mustang. This thing, he took a beeline straight for it and went nuts and knew what it was.
That's awesome. Well,
5 years old.
That's the idea. Is now we're gonna, not we, but they're gonna bring back Tonka trucks and in a big way. And this is how it started on a Ford F-350.
Can I build one?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm coming out there.
And it's really cool because it has our logo on it too. So there's 3 different sizes. They've got a big one like this, and then smaller versions. They're so cool.
Okay, we'll make one that says Tonka and MotoMan on it. So make me very clear about that.
Perfect.
We have 2 of these sitting outside right now.
Yeah,
you guys got to see this.
Yeah, these are the all-metal wide bodies that we do. So really, it's widening the entire car by 9 inches and kind of giving it a more aggressive feel to it. Get as fat of tires and wheels as you can get in the back and really get the grip of the road. Yeah, this one's got a little over 700 horsepower. Actually, 750. This is our boss.
Wow. This is my second favorite car you have done.
Oh, thank you. This was a 1966 Bronco. And, you know, we didn't want to do something typical on a Bronco, but at the same time, we wanted to have something that spoke of Ford's heritage. And actually it was Mad Mike that said, hey, why don't we do a Gulf Bronco? And I went, oh, I love the idea, and people are either going to love this or they're going to want to crucify us. Thankfully, it's been extremely well received, and it just, you know, when things just work, it just worked, and it really came out beautiful.
It's killer. But still, my second favorite custom.
And what's the first?
You may know this already.
Ah, yeah. This was actually Edsel's favorite, which we still are holding for him. This was a... okay, perfect. I'm going to hold you to that. But it was funny because Edsel Ford, literally, we showed this at the at SEMA a year ago, and he went nuts over it. And this is a Focus ST that we made a wide body kit out of it, and just went a little nuts with it. But that's kind of the fun of it all.
And what's power and everything on this?
We got a little bit more horsepower. Actually, you know, the Focus ST, it's extremely well engineered, so there's not a whole lot you can get extra out of it. We got a little bit of a touch, but it's meant to just kind of give you a little bit of that extra look and feel.
Yeah, and then this is a recent custom.
Yeah, this I'm really proud of. This is our first foray into truly building hot rods. This is called Iron Orchid. It's a 1934 Ford. It is meant to be a period correct custom. So nothing on this car, it's all OEM parts, but nothing is from after 1965. So either it was 65 or older parts, or they were all hand fabricated. And just some unusual features. It's got, you know, a Thunderbolt 427 in it that just sounds like the world's coming to an end when you start it up. Daryl Hollenbach did the paint job on it. When I saw the paint job, even I freaked out. I'm like, are you sure we should be doing this crazy? But it actually, I don't know, it works. And it's meant to be a show car of the mid-'60s.
How involved are you in speccing these things out? Like, oh, I think I want to do a Gulf livery Bronco, or I want to do a wide-body Laguna Seca 302.
Well, you know, it's about listening, right? I mean, I can't come up with all the ideas, nor do I want to. It's about, you know, figuring out and kind of opening up the creative process to say, look, let's not be wrong about things. Let's just throw out ideas and see what works. And it's about people that are passionate and love what they do, and just, you know, these guys would do this. The guys that work at Gas, and I mean this sincerely, they would be doing this whether you paid them or not. They just love doing the work. And, you know, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's kind of how we do things at Galpin.
Amen to that. Speaking of loving what you do.
Yeah, well, this is Ron Hornaday. And this is a replica, actually, of his race car. All of his race cars, from we understand, are destroyed. But racing is another big part of our heritage, actually. And Ron Hornaday was a mechanic when my dad was a salesman at Galpin. And they were both promoted to management around the same time. I think Dad was promoted as a sales manager first, then Ron was promoted as a service manager. And Ron and Steady Eddie Gray were our NASCAR drivers. And actually, Galpin won the West Coast NASCAR championship for 4 years in a row from 1961 to 1965.
And that was back when NASCARs actually bore some resemblance to the cars that were sold.
Absolutely. They were cars that were sold. And I just think this is really cool because we had a NASCAR team that would be working on the cars. And you talk about race on Sunday, sell on Monday. And it was actually service on Monday, too. Because imagine if now you pulled into Galpin Ford and a NASCAR team worked on your car. But that's what it was back in the day. You literally had a NASCAR team that
Galpin
worked.
Hendrick Motorsport.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that was really amazing. And yeah, I wish there was more of a resemblance in racing to the real world today.
Now, I know you're a USC guy. I'm a proud Arizona State alum.
Cool.
Where was the first race that Mr. Hornaday ran?
Oh.
Kind of gave it to you there, buddy. Yeah.
Oh, Arizona.
Arizona.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
Smart
Yeah,
guy,
hey.
this
Every once in a while I pick up on something.
guy. But Ron, he didn't like the idea of taking a brand new car and putting it on a racetrack and scratching it up.
As the story goes, the first race that he was in, he was very careful to not damage the car, which kind of infuriated Frank Galpin.
And what did Frank Galpin do?
He took a hammer and bashed up every part of his car, which was actually pretty wise.
And he won.
And he won.
That's when you started winning in '61.
Right, Dan?
NASCAR was not the only thing. This is not just racing or drag racing. There's something very askew.
Well, this is exhibition drag racing, which was the 4-engine Mustang was an exhibition dragster. So this is the backup pickup. So on this, it is an Econoline truck with the drivetrain completely reversed so that it drove backwards doing wheelies and sometimes on fire.
Did the guy with the rumble seat come up with this?
No, I think that his name was Dick Harding. And again, it was something that Galpin sponsored and serviced and worked on. My brother drove that car, not doing wheelies. But we actually built a replica of it. And George Tours, who actually drove it, helped us to make sure that we built a replica in perfect detail to that truck.
Which is now sits at Galpin.
Correct.
Yeah. And did some more drag racing. Is this real drag racing?
This is real drag racing. This is Larry Fullerton's Maverick. So we sponsored Larry Fullerton for a few years.
Okay.
And he actually went on to, after we sponsored him, his Trojan Horse 2 brought Ford their first overall NHRA victory.
Which was a Mustang at that point.
Which was a Mustang, Mustang 2.
And then you got inspired from Parnelli.
And we did off-road sponsoring as well, so and some off-road racing.
Yeah. More. You like this drag racing business?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And then here's Trojan Horse 2.
This is actually the original Trojan Horse, which Galpin was a sponsor of. So it did pretty well, but then the Trojan Horse 2 is when he really did incredibly well.
Now, interesting. Today, we want to talk about, our nuclear family. We're all family in the car world. Big tent, right?
Yeah.
Big tent.
Absolutely.
But in this world here, Los Angeles is unique in that, what is the business of Los Angeles?
I would say it's cars and movies.
Cars and movies, exactly. Yeah. So your father came up with another idea.
Studio rentals, absolutely.
So what's this business?
Well, we have an entire studio rental fleet, so we service Hollywood, West LA, and the San Fernando Valley and rent large commercial trucks. We do show cars, so cars that need to be placed in TV, commercial, and movies, picture vehicles, camera vans, all that kind of fun stuff.
I think we should back up a little bit here. One thing we did skip. So today, Galpin Ford, I think the official statement is #1 Ford dealer in the nation, correct?
In the world, actually?
Excuse me, the world.
Yeah. Hey.
The world, there you go.
Okay.
But when your father took over, that was not the case.
No.
You guys were in something called a trust.
Out of trust.
Yes, which is the receivership.
That is correct, yeah.
So what was the landscape like back then for your dad?
You're asking me like I was there.
You're supposed to know these things, man.
But I'm sure it
You're
was...
You're the VP now. You got the big title.
Well, you know, Dad was pretty young at the time, especially looking back on it, because he would have been probably late 20s, just kind of getting into a business that he never really intended on getting into, and got put in the driver's seat, and all of a sudden discovered that the business was not doing very well, and had some real financial issues when he took over, and basically was out of trust with the banks.
Okay.
Which means that's not good.
Not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So go from the guy who managed the Etzel store to the guy getting the business out of bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's a little trial by fire there,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, that's the best way to learn,
quite
I
a
guess.
baptism there. Speaking of trial by fire, who is this man here?
Is that Henry Ford there?
Is that Henry
Yeah,
Ford?
it sure is.
Yeah, so I have another question. We'll have tests with you today.
Okay.
Who is this man?
That is also Henry Ford.
That is also Henry Ford.
Yes.
How could they both be Henry Ford?
Well, one is Henry Ford the First, and one is Henry Ford the Third.
So in a little bit of Hollywood magic, we can actually make Henry Ford appear here at the Petersen.
No.
Yes, we can. Watch.
Okay.
Okay? O Salima. Henry Ford, please appear. Welcome, sir. Henry Ford III.
That was amazing. Magic.
Legacy of, come on, legacy families of Ford here. Galpin, or Boeckmann, and Ford. Come on, the kid looks just, I mean, look at this. His great-great-grandfather.
Oh, you should see him with the big bushy mustache. That was the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
This was.
We're getting to the mustache pictures.
Do you have those?
Oh, we do.
Oh.
Yeah, it's bad. I'm
Great.
sorry, man. Yeah,
All
this is
right.
ugly. Hey, John put you up to this.
Yeah.
So where does life start for you, Henry?
You want to start at birth, or where would you like to? It's
Well,
kind of an
what's
open-ended
funny
question.
here is everyone thinks Ford. It's American as apple pie, but your life did not start there.
No, I was born in Australia. My dad was working for Ford of Australia at the time, and that was shortly after he and my mom had actually lived in California for a while. He worked at our plant in Pico Rivera in the late 70s, and then he and my mom moved to Australia in 77, I think. No, 78, and then I was born in 1980, and we only lived there for about, after I was born, we lived there for about a year, and then moved back to Michigan, back to Detroit. So but I still have an Australian passport and a U.S. passport, which is pretty cool. I'm a dual
awesome.
citizen. Yeah.
didn't
So
know
it's,
that.
Look at this
Yeah.
guy. He can work in the Commonwealth. It's awesome. So your father had some interests.
oh
What
yeah,
kind of
that's a good
interest
picture.
did he have?
My dad, from a very early age, I think, was very interested and passionate about racing. He was at the '66 Le Mans victory with his dad. He went to, I think, he's been to probably every Formula One track in the world. He's probably been to every NASCAR track in the world. He's just been a big fan ever since he was a little kid. And there's a great picture too. I don't know if you have this one, but he's got a even longer hair and I think a mustache as well. And he's standing in front of Jackie Stewart's Formula One car before a race one day. And he, I'm not sure how he first got into it, but he worked for Carroll Shelby for a summer, and it's just always been something he's been passionate about.
So I find it very interesting that he goes to F1, he hangs out with Jackie Stewart, yet you go to the Pontiac Silverdome and see this.
Right.
Yeah, so this is one of my earliest, fondest memories of the automotive industry was Dad taking me to a monster truck show at the Pontiac Silverdome, and I don't know. I mean, when you're a little kid, at the time I probably came up. I probably wasn't even as tall as one of the wheels, and to see a monster truck and to see Bigfoot, I was just blown away. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
What was it like growing up? I mean, we've discussed this with Beau. It's unusual for us car guys to have all this around us. What was it like for you growing up?
To be honest with you, I think much like Beau said, it was pretty normal. And I think my parents went out of their way to create that sense of normalcy. So, I don't know. I spent most of my weekends either playing sports or doing my homework, and I think they really tried to do that on purpose because they didn't want, they didn't want me to get too caught up in everything that was going on, but you know, they used to dupe me into things like, you know, my dad would say, "Hey, who wants to go to the office on Saturday?" So he would drag us to his office, and he would do work, and we would do our homework sitting at his, you know, little conference table. But the great thing is that when I was sort of in middle school, no, this was probably back in elementary school, he was working at the Renaissance Center, which is a very tall cylindrical glass building. The same architect that did one of the buildings downtown in L.A. The Renaissance Center in Detroit is right on the Detroit River, and Ford and GM is there now, but Ford used to have offices there. And he had an office in the Renaissance Center that was on, I don't know, the 50th floor. And the cool thing was that you would drive down into an underground parking garage below the Renaissance Center and get in this elevator, and the elevator would shoot up out of the ground, and it was a glass elevator, and so you'd rise up
in the car
over. No, just a regular elevator.
Let's say I've been to the Ren Center. I've never been to this secret elevator.
Yeah, no, not a car elevator, just a human elevator. But you know, you rise up out of the ground, and it's on the outside of the building, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. So, you know, going to my dad's office on the weekend for him to do work and for me to do homework was like the coolest thing in the world, just to ride this stupid elevator that came out of the ground.
Awesome.
But you know, it's those little memories like that you remember
awesome.
as a kid. Yeah.
So here you are in the Ren Cen, and you guys, most of you guys have seen this. This is the major part of the skyline in Detroit. What was your thought process? Were you thinking of getting into the family business, or were you thinking of doing something different when you decided to go off to the wild blue yonder?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, you know, the one thing that I really give my parents a lot of credit for was they never pressured me into working at Ford. They never pressured me into getting involved in the automotive industry, and it just sort of happened naturally. And I certainly got dragged to a lot of races when I was a little kid, but it was always volunteer. I know, right? Yeah. A hard life, a really hard life.
Everybody want to say, "Oh,
yeah." But it was, and so I guess much like my dad, I got interested in the automotive industry through racing, and so I knew that it was always something that I wanted to do, I guess, even from an early age.
So Beau and I are Pac-12 guys.
Yeah.
What are you?
I'm not. I'm an Ivy Leaguer, and we haven't enjoyed as much athletic success as you have. So it's a little embarrassing, actually.
Well, maybe
to be
you
honest.
should get one of these the hamburger things.
Yeah, tailgate truck. Yeah.
What do we call that thing?
Oh, the tailgate party truck.
Tailgate party truck. Yeah, we need one. You know what? We need one of those at ASU.
They work.
Yeah, we'll just change the livery.
Okay,
Sun Devils.
we can do that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
In the 4 years I was at college, I think our football team won 3 games. It's not. Yeah.
We got one from Dartmouth here.
Dartmouth alum out there.
So you're studying at Dartmouth, and then you go on not to Ford. What did you do after university?
Well, I guess it was in college when I started to become interested in education, and much like Beau said, my parents were involved in a lot of charities growing up, and so I sort of felt like I had to do something to kind of give back before I started working at Ford. And I had teachers growing up in high school and middle school and elementary school that really had an impact on me and really sort of shaped who I was. And I always really looked up to my teachers a lot, and I respected them. And I guess it was some point in college I took a couple education classes and started thinking, hey, maybe I should be a teacher for a couple of years. So I did that. So I taught 6th and 7th grade for 2 years, and then I taught 10th grade for a year, and that was right after college, and it was great. I mean, I loved it.
Where did you do that?
I taught for 2 years in Northern Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., and then I actually taught overseas for a year in Switzerland.
Awesome.
Yeah, at an American school. Yeah.
Then you and your dad sit down in 2006 and have some discussions about your future.
Yeah, so that was, I started with Ford in January of 2006, and I had, I was sort of completing my 3rd year of teaching, and, that was at a time when Ford was in a really rough spot, as was the rest of the country, and, we were losing millions of dollars a day, and this is before Alan had joined, and Mark Fields and Bill Ford announced the Way Forward plan, and it basically involved closing a lot of plants, and it was a terrible time. It was really awful, and people were losing their jobs, and Ford was in a really tough spot. And I said to my dad, I don't I don't want to sit around and watch this from the sidelines. I want to do something. I want to get involved, and somehow I'd like to help. And so that was, I guess that was really what sort of triggered my entry into the company.
And you didn't really start at, say, product planning. You didn't start in sales. You didn't start in building cars. You had a very interesting talk about baptism by fire.
Yeah, I did. I had an amazing job. I worked in labor relations, and
in 2006 when you're closing down factories.
Yeah. So it was kind of the trial by fire theme, I guess. But no, I think Dad and I thought that I needed to understand what was going on from the ground up, and at the time this was really a center point for the company, and it was imperative in 2007 for both Ford and the UAW that we reach a contract that really sort of met the needs for both sides. And the UAW is the United Auto Workers. It's the union that represents all of our hourly employees. And so I joined in 2006, and I was part of the negotiating team. And it was just, I can't imagine a better way to get a sense for what was going on at the company than that job at the time. So it's something that I was very grateful for, and I loved it. I mean, I met some phenomenal people, and we talk about family and passion and enthusiasm for Ford, and our employees are just some of the most passionate people that I've ever met. And just like the car enthusiasts and the Mustang enthusiasts who are here today, these people, they bleed Ford blue, and it was a really moving time for me to work with these folks side by side and try to put together some kind of plan that would help preserve both Ford and the UAW, and we reached an agreement in late 2007 or 2008, I guess, 7, and we made a lot of very significant changes to the contract that had not been done in a very long time, and it was through that partnership with Ford and the UAW that we were able to reach that agreement. And so it was a very hard time, but I learned a lot, and it was very rewarding.
So what,
if I could say something on that too, because I learned a lot from Henry during that period as well. Because when you hear things from the outside, you hear about this horribly adversarial relationship between the UAW and the factories and all that was going on there. And I thought it was really interesting. It was right when I first met Henry and was kind of getting to know him, and he really talked about what you just said, the passion that the workers had for building the products for Ford, and the real appreciation that he had and truly a respect for the UAW and for what they do and for what they represent and what they're trying to achieve. And for me, that was a really interesting a turning point in my mind, because it was a very mature outlook, and it really is true. It should not be an adversarial relationship. It should be a partnership. And I think just hearing that from Henry and it really, in my mind, made me really appreciate where he was coming from in a very mature a way of thinking, and to say, hey, we're in this together. This isn't us versus them. We're all on the same team, and let's do this as a team together. And that was the first time I've ever seen the UAW and the factory really come together, and now really working together as a team. And I went down to the Kentucky plant, and those are some of the most enthusiastic workers you could ever imagine. They'd take off their gloves.
Had you guys known each other before that point?
No.
So that was the first time you met, was in Kentucky?
Right during that, I met him when he had that big bushy mustache, and I think that was right when you were still a teacher, but that's kind of when we started to get to know each other. So I just really, right from the get-go, earned a tremendous amount of respect for Henry.
So I got to ask, was it a benefit or a liability for a guy with the last name Ford, in your case, Henry Ford, rolling into the negotiation table?
I'd like to think it was a benefit. I think that, as I said and as Beau said, and it's subsided since then. But back in mid 2000s, when costs were rising and we were losing a ton of money, the UAW really took a lot of heat in the media for having these over bloated contracts with all these benefits, and it was completely blown out of proportion. And you know, working with them gave me a newfound respect for what they do. And I actually worked in an assembly plant for a week, and it was not fun.
Which one?
It was really hard. I worked at the Dearborn truck plant at the Rouge.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
Actually, you and I both worked in a factory at one point. Yeah.
And when you're sitting on an assembly line bolting on fascias for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it's not a fun job. And and so I really gained a newfound respect for what our employees do and the work that they do, and they're the backbone of our company.
So you took that experience and you went back to school. Where did you go to school for an MBA?
Yeah, so I went to MIT for business school because I realized shortly after joining Ford that if I wanted to have a long-term career at the company, I needed some kind of business training. I mean, I was an English major in college, and you know, I'd gone into teaching, and that degree served me well for being a teacher. But it didn't really give me the training that I needed, I think, to work for a large company. So I knew that I had to go back to school. There was just a lot of training that I needed to get. So I applied to a couple different schools. MIT appealed to me because it's obviously very technical and engineering focused, and that was not really a strong point for me at the time, and I wanted to sort of challenge myself. And
did you want to get in a technical role at the firm? I was going to say the firm at Ford. No,
not necessarily, but I really like what MIT stands for, and it's it's one of the foremost. I mean, it probably is the best engineering school in the world. Maybe there are a few schools in California that may object to that. But it's got a real strong sense of entrepreneurship, and the business school really, I think, encapsulates a lot of that and builds on that. And there are a lot of synergies between the various schools at MIT. And so, just sort of learning through osmosis was for me was really beneficial. And no, I mean, I am not an engineer by trade. I sort of wish I was, actually. That's sort of a regret of mine. But because I have a lot of respect for what engineers do, not only in the automotive industry, but in any industry. But it was just a phenomenal experience.
And then after that, you had some life experiences. Most life experiences kind of expand our horizons. In your case, you literally went to the horizon.
Yeah, so I hiked to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro when I was in business school, and I just sort of there's really not a whole lot to it. I had a group of friends at MIT, and one of them was actually starting a business in putting together hiking trips for people, and so we had I had a week off for spring break, and we flew to Tanzania, got off the plane. And the next day hit the trail, spent 5 days hiking to the top, then took about a day and a half to get back down, got on a plane and went back home. So it was sort of it was a pretty cool experience, though. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
And then you go back to Ford, take some jobs, but it wasn't just Ford Motor Company you worked at.
Right, yeah. Well, this was before I went back to Ford. So this was
your internship.
This was the summer right before I climbed Kilimanjaro. Yeah. So first and second year of business school, while I'm away from the company, I had the summer off to do an internship. And I had always sort of wanted to learn more about the retail side of the business and what folks like the Boeckmanns do every day. And so I talked to my dad, and I said, hey, I sort of want to spend the summer working at a dealership and selling cars. And he said, okay, well, why not? Do you and your dad, do you guys sit down and do you think about this like a chess game? Like, I'm going to think 3 steps ahead? Or is it, you know what, I know the Boeckmanns and this crazy guy out here, he's making these cool cars with rumble seats, you should go see these guys. Yeah, it's more of like that. I'd like to tell you, I'd like to sit here and tell you it's like a chess game, but no, we're not. I'd be lying if I said that.
Good question.
Yeah. But so yeah, I went out to Galpin for the summer and had an absolutely unbelievable experience and got to spend time in all the different departments and spent some time on the floor selling cars and spent some time in gas. And
Did you sell a Festiva?
No, I sold a Focus though.
Sold a Focus.
Yep. And it was not an easy summer because that was the summer that the automotive industry really hit rock bottom. And I think Mr. Boeckmann told me one time that the summer I was there in June selling cars was, I think, the worst month they'd had in 50 years of business. So my entry into Galpin coincided with the absolute worst period of their entire history. So, but, you know, obviously...
You're helping us do this, right?
Yeah.
Just pulling it back.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, was it Churchill who said never let a good crisis go to waste? And I learned so much at Galpin that summer, and it was just a wonderful
So
experience.
let me guess, he's standing at the front door when people come in, hey, have you met Henry yet?
Oh, man, I got to say, you know, I had known Henry a little bit, but not really well.
I mean,
So
come on, if you're a Ford store and you got a guy by the name of Henry Ford on the sales floor, you know what I mean? Who are you going to buy a car from, Beau or Henry?
I'd buy a car from him personally. But I got to say, it was an amazing experience for all of us. And you know, Henry walked in, and I know there were probably people thinking, "All right, what's he doing here?" And you know, he's here to check off a box. And I'll tell you, every department that Henry went to, when he left that department, nobody wanted him to leave. Everybody talked about how wonderful he was, how hardworking, dedicated, truly passionate about the business. Everything that he did there, he left better than when he started. And, you know, it's a real testament to the man because, you know, he does everything with a very, you know, a humble heart from where he comes from and always wanting to do the right thing no matter what. And just a hardworking guy that sincerely cares about people. And we couldn't have had a better experience having Henry in there. Nobody wanted him to leave, and I think we're all trying to offer him a full-time position. But
well, maybe you should have gave him a raise. He would have went back.
I know, really. Jeez, if we could have figured out a way. But
or at least a company car with a rumble seat. So what departments did you work in? So it was sales.
I mean, I think I hit just about everything that summer.
We kind of put together this plan of saying, okay, you've got a summer. So let's divide it up and figure out, you know, just to kind of walk through. Some of the things you kind of had to walk through quickly, just for the interest of time. Plus, I don't know if you know this, he's extremely, extremely bright, and he picks up things immediately. So we got to kind of rush him through. So we kind of rushed him through some of the things. We went through the, you know, the sales processes and the paperwork and, you know, the business office and those types of things. Went through service, went through, you know, the different departments. But really sales was where you kind of need the most amount of time because sales is about learning people. And it's understanding the thought process about what people have in their minds when they're shopping for a car. And not everything is intuitive. In fact, a lot of car sales are kind of counterintuitive. It's an emotional experience. And you know what we come from is how do you help people select their car? It's not about selling them something that they might not want or need. It's about, hey, what are your needs and how can we help you fulfill them? And that's what Henry really came in and just did a magnificent job in every area. And you know, we'd try to try to get him out of the office every once in a while. We had a big 4th of July thing going on, but it was a sale, and he's like, I'd love to come to the Boeckmans, get together there and light some fireworks, but I'm on shift. I got to sell cars. And you know what? I really admired that about him. I wish he would have hung out and had a beer with us, but he sold cars.
Well, I hadn't sold anything that summer, so.
Well, you sold this woman a car. She probably still has on her Facebook. Look who I bought a car from.
And that was the thing too. So I'm like, so do people get it when? Henry Ford's buying a car. I mean, you're buying a car from Henry Ford,
and incognito, like, hi, I'm Jake.
No, I had a little Henry Ford name tag right on my.
And did anybody pick it up?
Yeah, I mean, I got a whole range of reactions. Some people thought it was really cool. Some people didn't believe me. Some people thought I was lying to them. It was,
Oh, what a coincidence.
I could say, that's a great gimmick, kid.
Another car salesman with a gimmick,
But then, so Beau didn't give you that raise you asked for, and you went back to Michigan.
I did. So but Beau's exactly right. I mean, it's really, I again gained a new respect for everything that our dealers go through because, you know, customer walks in the showroom and you have 5-10 minutes to establish trust and a relationship to the point where they're willing to make what for most people is the second biggest purchase in their entire life. And that is such a hard thing to do. And I have all the respect in the world for everything that everyone at Galpin does. They're just the best.
So what was your first role? So you graduate MIT,
Yep.
you climb Kilimanjaro, you come back to Dearborn.
Right.
Now it's 20 degrees in Dearborn. What's your first job?
So I came back to Dearborn and I worked in what we call global advanced product marketing, which is sort of like product planning, and it's looking at the product development process from a marketing standpoint, but looking at it 10, 15 years down the road. So it's
See, then he got the fun job.
Yeah.
that was a fun job.
Yeah, first see how you do with labor.
Exactly.
See if
Yeah.
they don't kill you, then you get to work on cars.
That was a great job. Really sort of, you know, I had the chance to work hand in hand with our engineers and our designers and our finance guys, and it's really kind of where it's putting together a car from the very beginning, even before it's a concept.
Have we seen this car?
The car that I worked on, no, you have not seen it, and you probably won't see it for another year or two or three.
How mysterious.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, did you work on that car? Cool.
Yes. What time frame was this you were working on this
So
car?
this was 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Okay, so when should we expect the rear drive Lincoln Continental?
No
He's
comment.
quiet about that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get Steve to spill the beans. over
Yeah,
here.
Steve
He's
will tell
Mr.
you.
Rear drive. So switching back, and what are you doing now? You live in California now.
I do. So I got transferred out to the California office, which is down in Irvine. We have a regional sales and marketing office out here. I've been out here for about 2 years and currently working on Lincoln. And you know, we're going through a whole reinvention of the Lincoln brand right now, and which has been really exciting to have the opportunity to work on kind of reconstructing and rebuilding a brand has really been a lot of fun. And you know, it started with the MKZ last year, and we've got the MKC coming out this year, and Navigator and MKX next year, and it's kind of going through what Ford went through a couple years ago with just an absolute overhaul of the entire product lineup. And so
what goes into reinventing a Lincoln? Because a Ford, the cars are at a certain price point. There was already a lot of fantastic product over in Europe, as we saw with that Focus. Lincoln was different. Lincoln is mainly focused in the U.S. What goes into changing it around?
Well, and you know, I think admittedly, Lincoln kind of got lost in the shuffle for a couple of years when we had Volvo and Aston Martin and Land Rover and Jaguar, and you know, we had all these luxury brands, and I don't think Lincoln really sort of got the attention that it deserved. And so now we are just absolutely laser focused on Ford as the mainstream brand and Lincoln as the luxury brand. And so we have to, you know, create a brand that offers customers features and options that are just a little bit a step above what Ford can offer. And you know, there are a lot of customers out there. I mean, obviously the luxury segment is a huge segment, especially out here. And it's fierce. I mean, competition is fierce. My hats go off
especially in that segment. It's gotten even more fierce because now you got Cadillac, which they've reinvented themselves over 15 years. A new CTS is, I will go so far as to saying it is better than a current BMW, a CTS V Sport. Then you got better cars coming from Lexus that are more aggressive. What do you do in that environment?
Well, I think you have to create an identity for the brand, because I don't think, you know, it's going to be very hard for us to, you know, we can't out-German the Germans. I mean, they're very good at what they do, and I don't think we necessarily want to try to do that right now. I think we want to build not only a great vehicle, but a great experience that comes with that. And absolutely make, from the minute the customer walks in the showroom, make them feel like they are our guest, and we will go above and beyond whatever it takes to make them feel welcome and just to make the entire car buying experience just an absolute pleasure. And so I get to work with a lot of our dealers out here, like Galpin, and try and bring that vision to life.
Now, so you've been working in product, now you're working with the dealers.
Yep.
It's kind of in reverse here. You have a product planning role at Ford in Dearborn.
Yes.
What's that?
I've been on the Ford Dealer Advisory Council, which is what they call their product committee, for about 12 years now. And we work on advanced product planning, similar to what you were talking about, maybe not as far into the future, but everything from probably 3 to 8 years out, and everything from design, technology, performance, color and trim, literally the entire
So are you going
product.
up there working with Murray in the design studio?
Absolutely.
Is that what you do? Really?
Yeah, we do that.
Great guy,
I've done
by
that 3 to 4 times a year for the past at least 12 years. I think it's been a little longer than that now. So I've got to, when I first got there was a Ford 500. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And now we just got finished working on the new Mustang and F-150. So it's gotten a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And you went from first being on that committee to, this is back in the early 2000s when I was doing it, to really, you're watching the world change, and it was a very scary time. The Japanese were extremely aggressive out here. We didn't have a good small alternative, and that became really a focus forward to make sure that Ford not only had the best trucks and SUVs in the world, but also the best cars in the world. And they really got laser focused on that, actually before even Alan got there. And when Alan got there, he just kind of solidified the vision. And he really gave the vision, but a lot of the plan and a lot of the product plan had already started through Bill Ford and Mark Fields. And it's just been, one of the greatest honors in my life to be able to literally work behind the scenes of some of the greatest products and watch them come from an idea, from literally a sketch. Or in the Mustang, we looked at just a storyboard of emotional ideas and what we wanted the new Mustang to be, all the way to seeing it launched. And it's just the most fun you could ever imagine. You get to where you're kind of like, gosh, I can't talk about anything, and you got all this great news that you got to kind of keep bottled up, but that makes it especially exciting.
So if, let's say I'm like Joe Blow Ford in Montana. No offense to if there's a Joe Blow Ford Montana, but
Wouldn't that be cool if there was?
it would be, yeah.
There's a Bob Smith Ford in Billings, Montana.
Okay, Bob Smith Ford in
Bob
Billings,
Smith Ford
Montana.
and Lincoln, actually.
Okay, so
Wherever in Billings,
Lincoln, there
and you
go.
need a Lincoln,
Hey,
go
now.
to Bob Smith.
Okay, so props out to Bob Smith. I'll send you a bill for the promo here. Let's say Bob Smith, how far in advance would he see this 2015 Mustang normally?
About the same time that most of the public finds out. They do have some kind of sneak peeks, like for the dealer meetings and things. We just came back from a Lincoln dealer meeting, and they actually showed off, like the production MKC, which I don't know if it had been, well, they kind of showed some of that, but also like
And the X too, yeah.
MKX
Yeah.
they showed, which was the dealers got to see before anyone else.
Really?
And before that went off to China, which was premiered publicly. So the dealers today get, if they show up to the meetings, they can get they do get sneak peeks.
So that's-
and they also get some other teases
But some
of cars
sneak
coming
peek. But how far in advance did you see that Mustang?
out. From the sketches.
So early on?
Oh.
4 or 5 years?
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Wow, that's an unusual seat.
It was awesome.
So it's kind of funny, the term like kids today, one of the crazy things the kids today do. I think it's funny that you are shaping the Mustang in 2015 when in 2006 you were doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What's this?
I was Pimp My Ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Murray is coming to you. Murray is Murray Callum, who's the design director for Ford. He's coming to you, Mr. Pimp My Ride.
That is kind of weird if you think
is.
about it. Yeah.
If there is a rumble seat option in the 2015 Mustang, we know what's going on. So tell us how this came about.
Actually, it came about because of Henry's cousin, Al Uzielli, who is in charge of Ford Global Entertainment out here in Southern California. And he had been working with the producers of Pimp My Ride with some things with Ford. I'm not even sure exactly what it was, but we were building our own kind of crazy customs at the time, not only historically, but we started again kind of building some wild custom vehicles for shows and magazines and all that kind of good, and for our own calendar. And he just kind of introduced us and said, hey, I think you guys should meet. I like you guys, I like them. And the producers came over to Galpin. I gave them a tour and showed them some of the things that we had been doing over the years. And they were really funny because they'd say things like, yeah, but we were the first to put a fireplace in a car. And I go, we did this before we were born. And, oh, a fish tank, yeah. And we just got along famously.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, the producer walked into my office and just said, what if we did the show here? I'm like, great, let's do it.
Awesome.
And that's literally how it started.
Now, I've actually watched that show, and I might be committing heresy in front of a group of Mustang people,
Yeah.
but the one car I want to show that, remember, this is the whole theme here, and today we want to talk about the nuclear family of the SoCal world.
Right.
And I think this car, while not a Ford, really brings in everything about California. Tell us why.
Well, this was actually what we called the bio rocket, and this one was a little bit different.
That looks really bio, yeah.
Yeah, most of the cars that we built, we did in 10 days, 10 to 14 days, where you literally had a car that wouldn't look good at a junkyard, and we had to come up with a show car in 10 days. Mm-hmm. And this one was a little different because we actually did a full restoration. It's a 65 Impala. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be launched on Earth Day, so we completely re-engineered a biodiesel drivetrain in it, and it had over 850 horsepower and 1,000 foot-pounds of torque.
So a
running
Chevrolet
on
SS
pure, yes,
with a biodiesel engine.
yes, pure B100 biodiesel.
Yeah, only a Ford guy would think about that.
Maybe, I don't know. But it was a car actually we were pretty proud of. We took it out and filmed it on a drag strip against a Lamborghini, and it killed the Lamborghini it was so far ahead of the Lamborghini, they actually edited it to make the race look closer. I'm like, why would you do that? It's like, it didn't look believable.
Yeah.
But I
remember that.
Everything inside, it was made with recycled fibers. The carpets were made from recycled bottles. The wood was reclaimed wood. And it was really meant to show that you don't have to give up performance and fun to be environmentally friendly and to think about Mother Earth.
Who opened this show?
Governor Schwarzenegger, who was governor at the time, he opened the show, and he was the first real celebrity that introduced it, and it was on Earth Day, so it was pretty cool.
Wow, well, I know it's not a Ford, but a big round of applause for that one. That was pretty cool.
I would have preferred a Ford, too.
But that's not the only customs you do there. You've done some later customs. There's something interesting about this one in terms of how to control it.
Well, this was Scythe. After the show ended, we had this big team that wanted to build crazy cars. So we said, well, why don't we, this was actually a Mustang, believe it or not. It's got a twin supercharger getting 1,000 horsepower, completely rebodied car. Everything on this car was completely custom. And this was 2008, everything was voice activated, similar to Surrey, so you could actually speak to it and it would respond. And you could start the car from anywhere. You could give it your grocery list and it would remember. It was this whole kind of personal assistant as your car. Mm-hmm. And yes, the idea kind of came from Kit. So I was kind of a Knight Rider fan growing up. So it was, okay, could we possibly create a Kit kind of experience in a new car? And that was what we did here.
Yeah. And then completely the opposite, Comic-Con?
Yeah, actually.
Not a Ford.
The Walking Dead came to us and wanted, they unfortunately again they were sponsored by Hyundai, not Ford, but they came to us and said, we want a zombie killing machine. And we said, yes, that looks like fun. And then the cool thing was that there was an app and you could go on your app and design the car. So there were two that were built, and then the second one was actually designed by a fan, and then we built the actual zombie-killing car for the fan. I mean, not for the fan, but we built their exact car.
Wow.
We're not quite as worried about the zombies at Ford.
Yeah.
We're really going after the vampires and the werewolves.
Exactly.
Now, you guys, we had separate conversations. You and I had one conversation, we met. You and I had another conversation. But totally separate, you guys hit very hard on one topic. You hit on the recession. And specifically, you hit on what you learned from the business at that point. Can you share with us separately what you each learned from the recession and what you're applying to your respective businesses?
Sure.
Well, I think, I think for me, what I learned more than anything is that you have to always be aware of what the marketplace demands. And, for us, I think the recession taught us that we probably had too much capacity in the United States. I think it taught us that we weren't listening, even though we thought we weren't listening to our customers as closely as we should. We didn't have the small cars that we do now, like Focus and Fiesta and Fusion, that sell so well. We had, over-indexed on SUVs and trucks, and I think we had almost kind of let go of a very significant smaller segment. And I think what it taught us is we have to, anyone in a successful business has to always just be absolutely laser focused on what customer wants and what the customer needs and what the customer demands. And if you don't deliver that, then you're going to become obsolete, because if you don't respect the customer and what the customer wants, then you're not going to be relevant anymore.
You had a very unique experience the first time ever in Galpin history. You guys had to do something pretty drastic.
Yeah, the recession for me personally was the most horrifying and yet important experience in my life. And what you're referring to is we had never laid off an employee in our entire history. And for the first time, we needed to do so. And we waited far too long, but in a good way, because it is a family business. And that was the worst experience of my life, was literally going through employee by employee and figuring out how to right size, similar to Ford. Ford said, look, we have to right size the business to meet the demand, and so did Galpin. And I think growing up in a very successful business that Dad had created, coming from a position of not being in a good financial position to being extremely strong, there was almost an era of invulnerability, and kind of feeling we were always so laser focused on doing the right things, on taking care of our customers. We really built a wonderful business model that worked extremely well. So you realize when the bottom falls out, things are out of your control. You're not invulnerable. You're very vulnerable. And it was difficult. It was very scary. You looked at a certain time where you're wondering if...
There was something else you guys had to do for the first time in the history of Galpin, besides layoffs, in terms of actually coordinating with Ford.
In which regard are you talking?
Ordering cars.
Well, yeah, we got in trouble. And I was not involved in ordering cars, but what had happened was when the recession hit, the managers hit the brakes on ordering new cars. And what that happens is, even though sales had plummeted and you're selling less than half the cars you were a year ago, if you're not replenishing your inventory, you're stuck with the stuff that is not as wanted. And we ended up with a lot of inventory that wasn't what people were really interested in. So we kind of had this double whammy of having the wrong cars with not a lot of customers. And as that started to happen, we heard this cars for clunker idea might be coming on, and I got to take over. Not take over. Well, I did kind of take over the ordering of the inventory. I forget, because our Ford rep at the time, basically, she was great, by the way, because she's pitching, if you guys don't order cars, Ford Motor Company might not be there. But she really did a great job of laying out the story, and it was true. There was this air of desperation. We needed to do. Ford counted how many pencils they weren't supplying pens and pencils to employees. It was down to that tight. And at that time, I just said, look, if we got to go for it. We're either going to fail or we're going to make it, but we need to have the right inventory. We just said, look, just bring it on. And we ended up getting extremely aggressive and ordered a ton of vehicles that all arrived right before Cash for Clunkers. And that's when the business kind of turned around. And although we sold a lot of cars during that period, what was more important about Cash for Clunkers, and I know some people kind of look at it as a political issue, and I think you kind of need to understand there's more to it than it seemed. It really gave people permission to buy cars again. Because at that time, to buy a car was like a slap in the face to people that were not doing as well. And that kind of gave permission for people to say, okay, I can buy a car.
What time of the, when was
This was in the summer of 2009.
Okay.
And although 2009 was horrible and miserable, and 2010 was slightly better, it really, that's when the things started to at least turn around and start in the right direction. So it was an important thing for the car business.
So downsizing the business, and what would you say you've encapsulating? What did you guys learn at Galpin?
Well, and we had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
We had to downsize as a business and figure out how we, massively got rid of any expenses that were unnecessary at the time, and you go into strict survival mode. And that was the important lesson, because once you get into survival mode, you start looking at every area, every nook and cranny of the business, and making sure that everything's really running as efficiently and as properly as it should. Because no matter what, after years, you start getting into some bad habits, or you start not paying attention to certain things in the business, and costs can get out of line so quickly. And that's really what we had to make sure. And the wonderful thing was that we got to rehire back most, if not all, of the employees that we had to let go after not a long period of time. Not that not every individual, but I would say a great majority of the people that we laid off, we actually hired back.
So in your case, you guys grew market share of Ford. You got rid of brands, but grew market share of the core brands. And in your case, you grew the stores. You have more stores now.
Well, we had
Not Ford,
we
but like
kind of followed
VW,
Ford. Well, we didn't do any of that, but we followed Ford into getting some of the Ford brands, and then Ford sold them off. So what we thought was like, it was an unfortunate, necessary thing to do that at the time was painful, and we would love to see Ford still have those brands, but it's what needed to be done. It was the right decision at the right time.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, you guys have quite a bit of connections in the community here in Southern California.
Yeah.
Who's this?
Well, that's Evel Knievel, one of my idols. Yeah, and
What did you guys do with him?
I don't know. One night, I was watching this special on Evel Knievel. I'm like, oh man, he was my idol growing up as a kid. I had my Evel Knievel lunchbox, and I just thought he was the coolest dude. And I had that little wind-up thing that was horrible that did things. And so I just saw it, and I'm like, I'm going to build an Evel Knievel truck. So we did this Evel Knievel, like his white suit. This is actually the truck behind it's the blue one, but we did the whole white suit thing and did the stripes, did a whole interior. It came out awesome. Yeah. And I just sent a picture to Evel Knievel, and I said, hey, this I built in your honor. Is there any chance you'd want to make it official? And he immediately came back, and we ended up striking up a friendship, and we did a whole Evel Knievel edition truck, F-150 trucks, called the Gladiator, and it was awesome. And I really admired the guy. He was a really interesting character. He was the epitome of a man's man,
Well, speaking of man's man, I think some people might recognize this guy.
Carroll, yeah. Well, two people that unfortunately have passed on that I miss tremendously, that really had a good impact, a very positive impact in my life. And Carroll, Galpin was the first Shelby dealer in California, one of the original Shelby dealers. In fact, during that interview, Carroll said if it wasn't for Bob Taskin and Beau Boeckmann, the Cobra probably wouldn't exist. Because my dad and Tasca really got behind what Shelby was doing to say this is cool and this is important for Ford Motor Company. And
so back in the 60s, you guys were the first Shelby dealer?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
And then when I was on product committee and we were talking about bringing back the Shelby Mustang, I'm like, this has to be done. You can't say no to this one, and luckily they didn't. And I'll tell you, when the new Shelby came out in 2007, because that was right when Ford's market share was really bottoming out in California, that was a shot in the arm that saved a lot of dealers, because that Shelby Mustang was the hottest thing that we had in years.
Yeah. There's someone in this room that actually owns a Shelby Mustang.
I hope there are a lot of people in this room that own a Shelby Mustang.
Yeah. Which one do you have?
I have a 2008 GT500 KR.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it was, and it was you know, as Beau said, Carroll, I didn't meet Carroll obviously until much later in his life. And even until the very end, he was he's just larger than life. Yeah. And so just the funniest guy you'd ever meet. And and you know, my dad looked up to him so much, and my grandfather as well. And so when Ford and Shelby kind of reignited that partnership back in '07, and then the KR came out in '08, I just saw that car and I said, wow, I just have to have one. And it'll always be a very special car for me too, because I think it symbolizes the partnership between Shelby and Ford. And Carroll was Carroll was one of a kind. He really was.
Absolutely. What a great guy.
Back in Michigan, you have another grocery getter.
I have a 1970 Bronco, cool. Which my dad and I got actually from a guy out in California. And to me, again, the Bronco is just another sort of iconic car that unfortunately we're no longer building, but you know, things change every once in a while. But the Bronco to me it's just, I don't know, it's just the styling, even from the first day and up until the very end. Even the bigger Broncos we were building toward the end there, I don't know, Bronco to me is just, it's kind of like Mustang. It's sort of fun. It's independence. It's, you know, the Wild West. It's freedom. It's like, you know, it's all those emotions wrapped up into a lot of finely tuned sheet metal. And it's just, I don't know, I just think it's a cool car.
I know a guy that can really pimp your ride.
I've heard about him, yeah. Yeah.
He's got a special blue color you'll love.
Now, if we can just get him to build a new Bronco, and then we could
I think we can make this happen here.
Actually,
that's what I'm talking about.
So I'll tell you a funny story. So we, at our office in Irvine, we have a small design studio. And we have a charity partnership with a group called GRIP, and it's an acronym for Gang Reduction Intervention Program. We partner with a lot of Orange County public schools, and so we go into schools and we just kind of act as mentors. And we go see the kids and hang out with them, and then at the end of the year, we bring them all into our design studio and we show them kind of old concepts. And we had the Bronco concept from I think 2005 or 2004. And I got to tell you, the Bronco concept to this day still looks like a futuristic Bronco. I mean, it hasn't lost anything. And it was, the kids made a beeline for that concept as soon as they walked into the design studio. It's the coolest car.
Literally, I think on Thursday or Friday, it was in I think Yahoo as one of the best cars never built. Was the new Bronco. Yeah. We should see if we can do something about that.
I know.
Well, I think we should get a little feedback. Who wants this, bro? Who wants a new Bronco?
Yeah.
So take them back to your product planning thing when you go on the next trip. I think these guys would love to join you.
We got to work them on that one.
Speaking of customizing cars, who's this?
Oh, good old George Barris.
Yeah.
Yeah. The king of customizers.
Yeah, we got one of his cars down. Actually, 3 of his cars.
You got a bunch of them here.
Yeah, we got one in the Hollywood gallery.
Yeah.
So,
George is a dear friend and a great guy and another truly legendary human being.
It's a good thing you said legendary human being. So far, we've had this theme of very California, Ford, families, customizing cars.
Yeah.
How does this fit in?
Well, that's when my dad was helping out with Mother Teresa's foundation.
When was this?
That would have been in mid-'80s, I think 85, if I'm not mistaken. So, gosh, I can't believe it, almost 30 years ago.
Yeah. You're going to be an old man now, yeah. It's happening.
Getting there.
It's happening. So you guys are still customizing cars, but now you're kind of making your own car.
Well, this is the GTR1. So we had this project kind of come to us through Metal Crafters, and the idea behind it was, what could the Ford GT have performed and looked like had it continued its evolution? So that's what we did with this automobile, and it's a Ford GT chassis with, this one's aluminum, but we're going to be able to build them in carbon fiber bodies and just do a very extremely limited run. And it's all what's great about Ford, and all we did was make it go a little bit faster and put a kind of an evolutionary body on it. So it has a little over 1,000 horsepower, and I think it looks pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, no doubt about that. So with that, gentlemen, we've got one generation of Ford legacy. Who's this?
That's my dad with the Outlaw, or that inspired the comic book How the Pinto Got Its Spots.
And
I think one of the best-selling comic books of all time, right?
But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, and that's our wide-body Shelby.
And with that, gentlemen, this is two families' legacy that are currently the custodians of the Ford Blue Oval.
Well, thank you, George.
Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
So before we go over to Q&A, I believe we have something interesting.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't. The small farm animals, that's a problem. No, we actually have something very interesting here. Talk about legacy, generations, and families. I don't know how many guys know that certain car companies still have the families involved, like Fiat, BMW, but there are a few that have generations still involved, and I believe Beau wanted to share something.
Well, this is a little something that the team at Galpin put together. You know, Henry was in was it Automobile Magazine? But they're bringing.
Driver.
It was car driver. You mean the huge headline right at the top?
One right there.
And
Yeah.
I can't really read, even though it's right.
I told you, you're getting old, man.
I am getting old.
Vision's going.
But Henry had this great story where it was called the Ford versus Ferrari redo. So they had the new representation of the Ferrari family, Enzo Mattioli Ferrari and Henry Ford III, on a comparison basis. So we have this little plaque to commemorate the Ford versus Ferrari redo, as well as the time that you spent at Galpin. And I think it's time to kick Ferrari's ass again, Henry. So that's for you.
That's awesome.
So we
That's
expect to
awesome.
see a
Thank
Ferrari-killing car out of the Ford Motor Company. I don't know when.
Yeah.
This isn't part of the product committee we've been talking about, but we were hoping this might inspire Ford to have another Ferrari killer.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
You know, I got an idea. Remember we said we're going to take the Mach 4 out into Wilshire and do a drag race? We have a 250 Lusso over there, and then we've got it's one of the best
GT40.
cars, GT40, one of the best cars in our collection. GT40 Mach 3, and I'm so excited about the Mach 4. That's why I said I'll call it Mach 3. But it's the Mark 3. It's one of 6 built street cars.
Awesome.
One of 3 that have never been raced. I say we change that. Get the Ferrari and
Let's get
the
Enzo and
Ford out,
Henry. Yeah.
and the
Perfect.
2 of you race. The question is, who takes the Ferrari?
No, we'd have to get Enzo for that. I couldn't, I couldn't
Okay,
be
you know
seen
what?
in
I'll put on
Ferrari
a
out
mask.
there.
And
Okay.
With that, guys, questions, the cards that you guys have, if you have any questions, please pass them to the lovely Mario. And while we're waiting for that, want to give you a clue into what's coming up on Inside the MotoMan studio. Usually it's a month out. We do these once every month. This weekend, with the celebration, the 50th anniversary celebration of Mustang, we had Vaughn Gittin Jr. yesterday, our friend.
A good friend, yeah.
You guys, that's live right now, so you can see that on YouTube and all our distribution channels. But later this afternoon, we don't have to wait a month, we have a Haggerty Classic Car Valuation Seminar.
Cool.
And we're doing something entirely different. Our good friends at Haggerty, Adam here, Clint, and Nikhil, we're working with us, and we've put together this great panel of experts where, you know how the whole concept of the guy that wrote the book? Well, we literally have the guy that writes the books on classic car values in the building with us today, Dave
Fantastic.
Kinney. He's the founder and publisher of Haggerty Price Guide. He's going to talk about trends in the classic car world. Then we've got the guy who's the consignment director from one of the largest classic car auction companies, Mecum, John Craman, and he's works for NBC as a commentator on their show. He's going to talk about specific examples of cars, classic cars, before the recession and after the recession. Very interesting information on Mustangs. Then we're going to have our very own Chris Brown, who's the marketing director of the Petersen Automotive Museum and an Art Center alum, transport guy, also a major Ford guy. He's going to talk to us about the history of Mustangs. And then something very special, we're going to have my Targa Newfoundland teammate, who has won Targa Newfoundland and many other racing type stuff, including ice racing over the years. He's going to tell us how to upfit and campaign your vintage car.
Cool.
That's cool. Very cool.
That's coming up at 2 p.m. Pacific today. And then next week we decided to go from a big like 50th anniversary celebration, to very small, and have the design director of Hot Wheels, Felix Holst, join us on June 21st. So with that, Marielle, do we have the question cards? We're waiting for more question cards. It's very exciting. So that's pretty cool, that thing you got there. Now, oh, you know what I completely forgot? We're so excited about cars and family and legacy. Your life is literally changing in a month.
It is.
Yes.
I am getting married in less than a month.
Hey, congratulations.
So I got to ask, is she a car guy?
She is slowly becoming one.
Slowly.
Yes. I'm forcing her
Does she know how to
into
drive a
it.
stick?
What's that?
Does she know how to drive a stick?
Not yet. That's
Not yet.
one of the things on the list.
So she's going to be driving that KR?
No.
Ah, this is a proper car guy.
And she said, why don't you just teach me how to drive on your Mustang? And I said, no, that's not going to happen. It's a cute idea, but.
It is a cute idea. Yeah. Actually, a funny, talk about Ford families. There's a gentleman by the name of John Kleinert who's worked for Ford for many years.
Yes.
Fantastic,
John's the
proper
best.
car
Yeah,
guy.
John.
Talk about a Southern California car guy. You should do this. His wife, when they got married, their honeymoon,
I know.
not Puerto Vallarta, not Italy. Where did he go?
He went to driving school.
That's a
Racing
proper car
school.
guy.
And I,
Now that's
and
a marriage.
I was
Yeah.
very upset that he did not inform me that this was a possibility until just a couple days ago. Had I known that that was an option, Emily and I would probably be going to driving school.
Oh, yeah. I feel sorry for the future Mrs.
Yeah.
MotoMan. That's what we're doing for our honeymoon. No doubt about that. Whoever she is. But anyway, move on. This is a very interesting question from Scott that kind of, I believe, is going to go to both of you, but I think Henry should start off. Has anyone talked about a halo car for Lincoln?
They have. They have. That is something that we've discussed many times. I think a halo car definitely serves a legitimate purpose in reestablishing a brand. So it's something we've spent a lot of time talking about, thinking about. I think obviously we have to be careful that it doesn't, that it doesn't look or appear too much just like a rebadged Ford. So there are a lot of things to take into consideration, but absolutely, I think a halo car for the Lincoln brand would be fantastic. And if you look at our competitors, they all have one as well. But it is something that we have spent a lot of time thinking about, and more to come.
And I think, things are a little different now, I believe, and it's easy to say, okay, we'll come out with a sports car convertible, and that's their halo car. Well, you spend a lot of money on a vehicle that probably won't have a good return on investment to try to polish the brand. But if you don't have the right cars and all you have is this, then what are you really polishing? So I think Ford and Lincoln have taken a very different approach to say, why don't we build great cars first? And then when we have something that is a type of halo, then we'll have something really to back that up. And also, what's a halo car anymore? It's no longer a convertible sports car.
Speak for yourself.
Well, but you could say Prius for Toyota was a halo car.
You're in a car museum with car guys.
I know, and I really don't like those cars, and
heresy.
I'm bringing that up as an ironic point. But the truth is, why can't one of the core great products be a halo if done right? And I think that to me might even be more interesting than your typical halo.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think the whole idea of a halo car has been continually reinvented and probably still will be going into the future.
So I got to ask from my own thought process here. We're car guys. We sit around the room. We all want like a brown diesel station wagon that has 845 horsepower, all-wheel drive, a stick, with like a cloth interior, and that weighs only like 2 kilograms.
Yep.
That wouldn't sell. But
no, I'd sell to you and the other 5 journalists.
Exactly. That's it. But do you think, especially in the Lincoln world, we all talk about we want a rear-drive Lincoln that has a folding convertible top and 4 doors.
Yeah.
Take the folding convertible top out and the suicide doors. Would that work in Lincoln?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I think, by the way, you'd sell more than 5 of those brown station wagons. I actually think something like that could be a neat little niche. But
well, the Germans actually have proved it.
Yeah.
Put aside the joking, the Germans proved it, right?
Well, in America, a diesel station wagon with a 5-speed would still be a tough sell for a mass market. But a company that had the guts to do it, I think it would pay off for them.
But you know, it's a great point, and I think it's one of the great strengths of Lincoln as a luxury brand is that we have cars in our history like the Continental and the Zephyr that give the brand some heritage and that give the brand some identity. And we actually have an old Continental in our design studio right now that sort of serves as inspiration for future products. And I think it's one of the things that will continue to set Lincoln apart from the other luxury brands, that we have a history, just like Ford. We have that heritage, and that's something that we can continue to build off as we bring future products to market.
So I guess the point here is that you guys, most of us would say we want this. Is that something that you think would actually sell?
Yeah, I do.
I do.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. So interesting, the person did not put their name. Other than a Ford, what is your favorite car?
Oh, that is a tough. You first.
Oh, excuse me. That is from the lovely Maria.
Oh, Maria,
Yes.
yay.
Checkered flag,
Thanks.
200 member.
Put us on the spot up here.
Yeah.
New car, classic car?
New car or classic car?
Well, I can answer this question a little bit more easily than maybe you could, because it's not a Ford, but it's a brand that used to be owned by Ford, and we actually still own part of it. But I don't think I'm as big of a James Bond fan as you guys. But the old DB5 Aston Martin that was in, I think that is the most beautiful car in the world. And
Absolutely.
those old
too.
Aston Martins, in my opinion, are just. I mean, I just get shivers every time I see one.
Speaking of James Bond, I am a James Bond complete freak. I mean, we have a dinner theater club we've done for 20 years.
That's awesome.
Which I will extend you membership.
Well, thank you.
How do you, if I'm going to go to Galpin Aston Martin and pick out my Aston Martin and go buy it, what is the process in which I walk into the showroom?
So I'm also a James Bond fan, and we actually created, and this is when Ford did own Aston Martin, kind of an unusual experience. And actually, my answer would have been actually an Aston Martin too, but I didn't want to seem like I was copying Henry. But our Aston Martin showroom, that's the vault that you see right there. But you get into it, there's a special kind of secret entrance where you have a thumbprint at the bottom of the stairs that bring you up.
Is this it here?
Not quite. The doors open up, and inside, instead of a showroom or just a showroom, you've got a lounge. You've got a bar, which doubles as a design studio, a turntable with a light and music show. And then you come into the vault where your own one-of-a-kind Aston Martin is ready for delivery. So it has a little bit of a whole James Bond kind of wink about the whole showroom. In fact, on our turntable, we have a mirrored ceiling that represents kind of a wink and a nod to the gun barrel of when the James Bond movies open up.
Was that a wink and a nod to Madame Frenchie's van?
Not quite.
So here's another question kind of similar to Maria's. What's your favorite Ford car, old or new? Old or new?
Ford GT for me.
That's an easy one, yeah.
Well, I can't say the same thing because I don't want to copy Beau. But since we're here, sort of celebrating Mustang, I'll say for me, my favorite Mustang is probably the '65 GT350, because I think when Mustang first came out, it was a car that appealed to a lot of different audiences. But then when Carroll turned it into a race car, it kind of gave it some legitimacy to customers, and I think that performance and that the Shelby name has continued to pay dividends for Mustang, and I think clearly that car is the one that set it off for Mustang, and to see the way that Carroll transformed a Mustang into a legitimate race car that won races and proved on the track that it could stand up to anybody else, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting and important aspects of the Mustang history.
And to copy Henry for a second, my favorite individual car, I'm going to embarrass my dad for a second because it's a car he absolutely hates, is a 1965 GT350 Shelby that was actually a legitimate barn find, all original condition.
Yeah.
That's here at the Petersen Museum in the other
go check
room.
it out.
And it was originally sold from Galpin Ford when we were in San Fernando. And that, to me, you know, Dad looks at it and goes, it looks like an old used car. And he's right, because back in the day, he had them on the used car lot.
An old used car worth $1 million.
Yeah,
I'm
now
sorry.
now there were something, but that is, as an individual car, I think my favorite. And we actually got that thing running to drive to Pebble Beach last year, and it drove like a clock. I couldn't believe how comfortable and fun a nearly 50-year-old car can be, but that car is amazing, and it's right over here to see too.
Yeah, it is here. The Mach 4 is here. The GT350 is here.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other cars from your collection here.
Yeah, a couple other.
Yeah. Last question. I think this is a really interesting question. We talked yesterday with Vaughn, and one of the points he and I hit hard on this whole, you can buy the base Mustang is 300 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You know, you can get what is it, an all-wheel drive Fusion with 240 horsepower out of an EcoBoost engine.
Yeah.
So we kind of said it was we're kind of living in the golden age of cars again, instead of the people saying, oh, cars are terrible nowadays.
It's really true.
With that being the case, Michael asks, how has the competition with Camaro and Challenger and other performance cars affected the development of the 2015 Mustang?
Well, I would argue that it's helped. I mean, I think whenever our competitors release a worthy adversary, it's good for business. I mean, it's good for that segment. It's good for that sports car segment. I think we're kind of in a generation right now where we're almost sort of recreating the muscle car wars of the 60s and 70s. But at the same time, not only can you get a base engine with 300 horsepower, but it's got 30 miles per gallon. And the fact that engineering has come so far to produce an engine of that capability, in my opinion, is just mind-blowing. Yeah. But no, I think it's great. I mean, my hat's off to Camaro and Challenger. I think those are great cars, and I'm glad they're out there, and I'm glad they're successful because it gives us something to really challenge ourselves with. And I'll be really excited next year when Mustang sales start blowing away Camaro sales again. So that'll be pretty fun to see.
You heard it. Steve, get to work.
Absolutely. And by the way, I couldn't agree more. I think competition is absolutely wonderful. I think it makes us all better at what we do. And it's, in the end, who wins? Consumers and car guys and gals win, because everyone's out to build a better car. And hey, that's what America's about.
Gentlemen, on that inspirational note, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you guys for joining us. And we'll see you guys on the live stream in about an hour for our Hagerty Valuation Seminar, where we're going to learn about how to campaign and race your classic car.
All right.
Gentlemen, thank you.